Perfect. All right, everyone. Well, I'll call this session of the Hearing Examiner to order. Today is Friday, January 19 at 9 o'clock a.m. This is a continuance of the Duke Hill preliminary plat matter, which we started on December 28. We actually had the whole hearing on the merits. But one of the questions I raised on that was, we had a very large number of wetland reports, and those went out for third-party review by 7K. And 7K produced a rather devastating memo in Exhibit O, in which they said it's confusing to follow these reports. Some of the methodology appears to be wrong. You may even be using like the wrong manual to look at wetlands. Can you please just produce a single, critical areas report that just covers all this stuff in one places and fixes the following, dozens of corrections. So in response to that, Sound View, which was like the fourth wetland consultant or something on this matter, Sound View came out with a revised wetland and fish and wildlife report, which we're calling Exhibit P. And during my questioning, Ms. McGowan said, "Oh, I think that went out for third-party review." I think she was not involved with the project at that time, but she was like, "I think it went out for third-party review," and the third-party reviewer said everything was fine. I was like, "Well, your word is good enough for me, but just in case, could I please have the email where they say that?" So Ms. McGowan went back and looked for that email, and it turns out what actually happened was the previous reviewer for the city had been in touch with 7K, and 7K had expressed some interest in the SoundView report, but the previous reviewer had said, we don't need you to do third-party review at this time, and no further explanation of why that was. So it turns out the third-party reviewer never saw the final version of the Wetland and Fish and Wildlife Report, Exhibit P. So I don't, based on that, it's hard for me to know whether the third-party reviewer would have said, "Oh, all those concerns, the dozens and dozens of issues that we raised in Exhibit O have been addressed. Exhibit P fixed everything." I don't know whether the third-party reviewer would have agreed with that. So I've called us all back here to figure this out because this was kind of an unexpected wrinkle. What I thought I was going to get from Ms. McGowan was an email from 7K saying, "Wow, great job. Exhibit P is, the best wetland report anyone's ever done, and all my issues have been fixed." That's not what I got. So now it turns out the final version of the wetland report hasn't actually gone through third-party review. So I've called us all back here to figure out what we should do about that. And there's a few options. One option is to send the third-party reviewer, presumably it's going to still be 7K, send them Exhibit P and ask them, has this solved your concerns? Do you think that this wetland and fish report, adequately addresses the habitat issues? Do you agree with the, buffering and mitigation measures? Because there's a lot of wetland fill. What do you think, third-party reviewer? That's one option. Another option is just to close the record where we're at and let the hearing examiner make a decision. And I guess under that scenario, what I would do is I would look at Exhibit P and I would try, in my non-expert way, to figure out, were the third-party reviewers' concerns addressed? Are we, compliant with the critical areas code here? Is this wetland filling and mitigation and the banking scheme, is all of that compliant with the code? I'm comfortable reading codes and figuring out whether the evidence supports a finding that the code has been met here. I'm less comfortable attempting to sort out technical issues like what was the just to, let's see, we can call up Exhibit O here, PDF 141. Like just looking at like objection number 5 here on Exhibit O from the third-party reviewer. Please calculate cumulative area in square feet and acres of wetland and wetland buffer impacts. Presumably Exhibit P has done that. Do you really want the hearing examiner, sort of squinting over a map and calculating the cumulative area in feet and acres to see whether Exhibit P has gotten it right? I am not thrilled about the idea of doing that. And not only because it makes more work for me, but also because I'm way outside my area here. I am more comfortable having a third-party reviewer who's an actual wetland biologist, do this kind of stuff and then, give me, their feedback, which could be in the form of a memo as to whether they think Exhibit P has finally gotten it right. So I guess this is where I'd like to hear from the parties. From Ms. McGowan's point of view, do you think it would be better to have third-party review of Exhibit P, or do you think, gosh, we've had so many wetland reports that the hearing examiner ought to be able to figure out now whether it complies with the code or not? And then I'd like the applicant's opinion on that same question. So we'll start with you, Ms. McGowan.
So I'm kind of in the same thought process as you. Like I was looking at this, is this something that I can determine whether or not the wetland report, the most recent one, really does address all of those comments like you're saying. I'm no expert in this field.
That's why we have third-party review instead of,
right.
Nicole McGowan, figures out everything.
Feels that way, but so our code does say technical reports do need to be sent out for third party at the applicant's expense. So I feel more comfortable having this sent for third party review. And I think in that letter I sent to you, I did kind of play around with the idea that we would move on with your decision here, and then maybe just throw a condition in that prior to fill and grade permit approval, we do that third party review, and make sure that our consultant is comfortable with that report as it's written now.
I mean, there's issues with doing it that way. Like, I'm essentially here to draw lot lines for the most part. And if it turns out that the lot lines I draw through the platting process, have to be altered as a result of wetland review, then we're in then we're in a weird kind of mess. All right. Any other thoughts, Ms. McGowan?
Yeah, just one more. I just wanted to mention 7K Environmental is no longer contracted with the city. A new consultant that would be looking at this.
Well, that's really unfortunate. Not because I think like 7K is like the greatest thing in the world, but they were already so familiar with this project. They're the ones who raised the objection. Now you'd have a different third-party reviewer saying, like, here's what I think 7K was getting at, and I think it's been solved. There's no way to bring them back in, huh?
That's correct, yeah.
Okay. All right, let's hear from the applicant team. Applicants, what do you think I should do here?
Yeah, so this situation also came as a surprise to us. We were unaware that the report had not been reviewed by 7K until Nicole, unveiled this whole situation. As you indicated, Alex, the choices before us as the applicant, none of them are like a beautiful, obvious choice to make because it puts us also in a difficult position, sort of no matter what road we move forward with, to be completely honest. We spent a lot of time thinking about this, and after speaking with Nicole, speaking with Soundview, JP and I met, Rob Janicki and I discussed this. We felt like although it could potentially be messy, as you indicated, if we were to move forward, that is sort of a slightly lower risk situation than the alternative, which is just leaving the record open indefinitely until this third party review is solved. We would prefer to move forward with the condition as Nicole has proposed to you, and feel confident that our report that is prepared by Soundview does in fact address all of these issues. It was a significant undertaking that Soundview went through to bring all of the reports together, redo delineations, the new finding of the enormous wetland Y. There was a significant impact to our design at the time. We feel confident we can move forward with this report, and we would like to, and we do recognize the risk of, in the event that there's a significant disagreement with the Soundview report, that it could crack this plat wide open again. We are aware of that.
Well, I mean, you have a larger risk than that, and that is the risk that, when I sit down to write this decision, and I say, oh gosh, has the applicant satisfied its burden to demonstrate that the critical areas ordinance has been complied with? I might think, you know what? I'm not persuaded that the applicant has met that burden. And then you just get a denial outright. So,
it's obviously not what we want. I mean, I guess I feel like I'm trying sort of making decisions in a vacuum, like, am I allowed to ask, like, is that the direction you see this going? If so,
Well,
that may change what we decide to do. Like, I have no interest to enter into a situation where we're going to be denied, of course. I'm just trying
yeah,
to find a
right.
way to, we were, as the applicant, quite blindsided to learn that this had happened. We had no idea that this had happened. So, on one hand, if there's a possibility that we can move forward with approval with conditions, that would be ideal for us. But if you're saying to me in this meeting, like, you cannot approve it, that changes things, of course. So,
Yeah. So, I'm looking at the critical areas ordinance here, because that's
Mhm.
ultimately what's going to govern. And when I read 17.65.070B, I'll just read it in its entirety. Technical reports shall be prepared as required by the director, detailing geological, hydrological, drainage, and other site conditions to comply with the development standards in 17.65.060. Let me make sure I'm in the right section here before I subject us all to my reading. Yeah, and I think sorry about this. Technical reports shall be prepared as required by the director. The reports shall be used to condition development to prevent potential harm and to protect the critical nature of the site, adjacent properties, and the drainage basin. Technical reports prepared by consultants not contracted with the city of Sedro-Woolley for the work shall be subject to third-party review by the city of Sedro-Woolley's independent consultant at the applicant's expense. Appeals of the blah, blah, blah. So I guess the language that I have kind of latched onto is the reports shall be used to condition development to prevent potential harm and to protect the critical areas. In my mind, that means that any conditions that may need to attach to your plat based on the reports are ones that I have to write before I do the decision. I think it's kind of getting things a little bit backwards to say like, oh, here's your approval, and then we'll get review of the reports. And if the reports, require us to do something different, I mean, I guess you're asking the third-party reviewer to essentially do my job, right? You'd be handing the third-party reviewer a plat that's been approved by the hearing examiner. And then there's a condition in it that says, oh, if you, the third-party reviewer, see any problems with this plat, flag them for attention and we'll redraw the plat to fix whatever you find is wrong.
Mhm.
But I think that's getting the process a little bit backwards. I think we get the third-party reviewer first, and then we draw the plat and make the conditions based on what the reviewer is telling us. That's how I think the process is supposed to work. So I understand what you're trying to do in the name of efficiency. I guess
Sure.
I'm just trying to think, is there any way that I can say that what you're proposing here is compliant with what 17.65.070 is telling me to do?
Sure. And of course, I don't, like, as I indicated, we do not want to end up in a situation of denial.
Right.
We do not disagree that this report should be reviewed by a third party. Of course,
Right.
it needs to be. It's a matter of timing. This is a unique situation. I've never been in front of a hearing examiner and learned that something that needed to be reviewed was not reviewed.
Yeah, well, yeah, and I don't normally call people back in to reopen hearings.
No, this is highly unique.
Usually my standard is, you're the one who has to make the case. You had a hearing to do it. If you didn't make your case during the hearing, too bad for you. But
Right.
here it's like we wrongly thought that this had been done. I said, well, it is only fair to reopen this and give them a chance to explain.
That's fair. I mean, I think I've learned new things in this discussion this morning as compared to, coming into the meeting thinking like, okay, we can just go ahead and condition this. We'll get it done because obviously it needs to be done. That's what the code says. And we agree that that's important. But I don't want to put myself at risk to receive a denial in the hearing either. So I feel sort of, although of course, like disappointed and a little bit like backed into this situation that as the applicant we were unaware of until a couple weeks ago. I don't really see that there's another path forward because I've never received a denial from a hearing. I imagine that is not a nail in the coffin that we want to have happen to this project. I'm sure Nicole,
Well, so I mean, we can game that out a little bit. Obviously, you'd have the ability to appeal my denial. But
Right.
that's kind of a lengthy and uncertain process, and you don't get a
Sounds-
second hearing on the merits. What you also could do is, in the event of a denial, you could do a resubmittal, but that would kind of, put you back to square one. Presumably not
Right.
much would change. So yeah, a denial is the only point I'm making. A denial is not necessarily the end of the world, and a denial doesn't mean like, the property can never be developed. I'm not saying a denial is a good thing, but it's also not a total catastrophe. I mean, I just wrote a
Okay.
denial last week, and they're going to do a resubmittal. These things happen.
Right.
The safest
would
thing for you
be
to do,
putting this-
obviously, is to say, well, let's just do the third-party review now. That's also a little bit slower. I think faster but more risky is to say, you know what? You wanted third-party review. It did get done, and now we've prepared a response to third-party review. Now you want third-party review on top of that? That's not what the code says. Let's just stand pat with what we've got, and the hearing examiner can resolve any questions himself based on the record as it exists. That'd be faster for you, but I can't tell you the outcome. And I can't tell you the outcome because I don't know the outcome. I haven't actually, gone through line by line, comparing Exhibit O with Exhibit P and trying to figure out like, okay, is this good enough? I haven't done that work. So I don't know what the outcome of that would be. I really don't. I'm not trying to be coy with you. I don't know whether you'd get an approval or a denial.
Yeah. I mean, and that's a big risk too. So you see where I sit here, you guys, as the applicant, it's not an easy place to
Yeah.
be, and it's a unique and unusual circumstance. So as much as it like pains me to say, and I think JP could agree, I feel like we don't have that the only choice we could make without making a logically risky decision is to move forward with getting this third party review done in advance of the decision. So what does that mean for our process with the hearing examiner then? Is it
I'll give you as
postponed
much,
or?
yeah, I'll hold the record open for as long as you need. I would anticipate that third-party review would probably just come in the form of a memo.
Yeah.
Beyond that, it's kind of hard to figure out like where it would go. Like, I guess what you would hope is the third-party review would say Exhibit P, solved everything, and this is great, and there's not going to be any harm, or if there is harm, it's all been mitigated. That'd be kind of your best outcome.
Right.
If the third-party review continues to find fault with Exhibit P, then I guess, potentially you'd have to like revise Exhibit P, and there'd be like another round of back and forth.
Yeah.
And I'm happy to hold the record. So here's what I'll do for you. I don't know what the third-party reviewer will find. I'm happy to hold this record open for as long as it needs to be, whether that's just a single memo and we're done, or whether it's like back and forth with the experts. If we want, we can even call everyone back in here so that I can hear testimony from the experts. I'm happy to do, another hearing just for that purpose.
Right.
Whatever you guys need. So I guess I would kind of follow your lead and the city's lead in terms of like, here's where we're at with the process.
Right.
My preference, frankly, would be to have it all done through memos, right? Like as I recall, I don't even think we had Sound View testify back in December, did we?
No, we did not.
Yeah, so
Have their report.
I can't imagine the circumstances under which I would need like 7K or its successor and Sound View to appear before me and like argue in front of me. If you think that'd be helpful, I'm happy to do it. Anyways, it's just kind of it's
Right.
kind of wide open for whatever that looks like.
I think that's the path that you outlined is the best, where ideally we just receive back a memo from the new third party that says, this looks great, we're good to
Right.
go, and we send it to you. In the event that that's not what happens, like you said, tracking it through memos and then submitting an updated exhibit to be, added into the record, I guess would be the move.
Yeah.
I agree. I see no circumstances where we're having like a live action dispute in front of you in this, with this audience. So, hopefully, Nicole, we can just get to a situation where it's like, here is our new pack of memos, or whatever it is ends up being, sending that to you for submittal into the record. And then if a supplemental conversation needs to occur, fantastic. If you feel like you
Right.
have what you need to make your decision, that's great as well. So I guess, moving forward, the next move is really in Sedro-Woolley's court, it seems, to just take the 7K comments, take the Sound View report, and get that submitted for third-party review as soon as you can. So And in the meantime, we'll be in a holding pattern, kind of just waiting to hear how that goes, I suppose. Yeah, so this is quite unique. So the record is still technically open as it has been.
Well, I
Okay.
mean, it's open for this limited purpose, right? Like, I'm not like taking new public comment or anything like that. Like, the public
Okay.
had the chance to weigh in.
That was a concern that I had as well.
Oh,
but
yeah,
you
right. Yeah,
jump
no,
in and-
I don't think so. I mean, you know, it's tempting to do it because, like, oh, what if the third party review, you know, recommends some crazy thing that affects the public, and I might want to hear what the public thinks. But I just, you know, at some point, sanity has to prevail here. So we're holding the record open for third party review, not for anything else.
Okay, that's great. Well, in that case, I agree as the applicant with the path forward that we just discussed. I think that, you know, we are prepared to support City of Sedro-Woolley in any way we can to get the third party review complete and get you, you know, the hearing examiner back a complete something, paper.
Yeah, something. Well, thanks for you know, not forcing me to play the wetland biologist. I do appreciate that.
Sounds hard, you know, we all have things we're good at. There's reasons we
Yeah.
have consultants, so sounds a little
Okay.
tough.
Well, thanks, anybody. That was all I had. Does anyone else have any issues to bring up before we say goodbye? Okie dokie.
No.
All right. Well, thank you so much and have a good rest of your day. And Ms. McGowan, can you send me the audio for this? Because this too will be part of the record. Okay, thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank
See
you.
ya.
Take care.